Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum friends. Welcome back to the United Verse second transmission that we're doing for tonight's evening. And today we're going to discuss clearly about Rúben Amorim's tactics. That is the topic of the day. Basically, I was going through every transfer news that we have done in the previous episode, and we were kind of looking at what's possible in terms of how will Manchester United look under Rúben Amorim, and it's a case of what can Amorim do in order to improve this Manchester United side. We do know the struggles that we've seen in the previous year. It was almost looking like as if he wanted to get rid of the system in terms of the players as well as the squad. Now the problem over there is you cannot do that in Premier League because these players are, you could say, expensive commodities. You can tell that they are very expensive products. You cannot get rid of them with the flick of your finger. All you have to do is find the right solution in terms of sometimes you have to send out players on loan, sometimes you have to get those important sales in order to raise some cash and then bring in new players. Now for that reason, I think Rúben Amorim, he has been quite patient in terms of he knew what he was getting into. He knew before getting the job what the job was in terms of as a challenge, and for him to realize that Manchester United are not the way they were 10 years back, even 15 years back. So that was a huge thing for him to kind of accept the challenge and then come into the club, see what he can do in order to change what if you walk into the club and you see the players that have been performing haven't been good enough for the previous manager, so that kind of thing makes it much more difficult for you. So Rúben Amorim knew what he was getting into, and I'm sure that he would have looked at the squad and thinking about what he can do to improve these players. And I'm sure that on the training pitch, I do remember his first two press conferences, he did say that he wanted to work with the players. He wanted to see how do they perform on the training pitch. Maybe he could give in some tips to improve those players. And I think the most of the times he was always reiterating the same thing, that he wanted to work with the players that were currently on the payroll, and he wasn't expecting those players to be get rid in the January transfer window because he knew it's going to be a long challenge, it's going to be a long season, and that is the reason why he declared after the 5 games that, you know what, we're going to go bad, very bad, and then things will start to improve. I think he realized in those first 5 training sessions that maybe this squad lacks what he requires with his system, and he has been always, you could say, I think he loves 3-4-3. The reason he loves 3-4-3 is because that system kinds of make you secure at the back, but then the problem comes in if you have got a goalkeeper like Onana. I mean, if you have got a defense where you have 3 good center backs but still you are conceding goals, that means there is something wrong. And I think Rúben Amorim, as much as he wants the system to work with Manchester United 3-4-3, specifically in Premier League, he realizes the player quality that he has got currently right now are not up to the task, not up to the challenge, because he has worked with them for like more than 6 months. And I think you can try to extract as much as you can from those players, but a point comes where you just want to make a really harsh decision by moving on those players and then bringing on those players who can listen to you and who would play the way you want to play. So I think Rúben Amorim, I'm sure that he would be working on those kind of ideas. He would have spoken to Jason Wilcox, he would have spoken to Christopher Will, he would have spoken to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and I'm sure that whole idea is just to see if they can get better players who can adapt to his system. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss about his system right now and see how he tends to play. It's a 3-4-3 formation. I wasn't able to find that exact formation on the screen. You can see there in the box, but we're going to go with 3 at the back and we're going to go with 2 wide fullbacks. We have 2 midfielders in the center over there. Then you got 2 number 10s and that number 9. We're going to start off from the back and we're going to see that if United are able to get Martínez from Aston Villa, I think is going to be a very good acquisition in terms of he is not something that I would say as a must get for United. In terms of if there are other goalkeepers available in the market, would I want to go with him? I think I would go with some other goalkeeper, but then the case is if they haven't played in Premier League, they would need at least a year to adapt Premier League, and that where the problem comes in, because Rúben Amorim, he has suffered a lot in that previous season. He wants to start performing. He cannot accept so many losses the way he has seen in last season. He really wants to get those wins, as he has reiterated in his last speech of the final game, and he cannot wait for this club to improve on those terms. Now, keeping that in perspective, if Martinez is the goalkeeper who has got the Premier League experience, he hasn't done that bad with Aston Villa. Now, you cannot get Alisson, you cannot get Edison, you cannot get, I think, Nick Pope, who has been injured a lot as well. If you look at other goalkeepers on the top of my head, I think Raya, he wants to go to Spain. Maybe if Oblak goes to Saudi Arabia, then we might see Simeone coming in for Raya and Raya joining Atletico Madrid. That is why Arsenal are signing Kepa as a backup goalkeeper in case if they have to lose Raya. Now, I don't see any other goalkeeper in the Premier League who is good enough and who's also available. Because if you want to go for the goalkeeper who is good enough, better than Onana, then I think your shortlist is getting shorter, because I don't see any other goalkeeper who could be better than Emiliano Martinez. Because Emiliano Martinez wants to leave the club. He has got a year remaining on his contract, and I think his time is up, so he would be available for 25 to 30 million, as you have reported earlier. Now, Emiliano Martinez, if he plays out from the back, and we could see Ligt, Mazraoui or Lisandro Martinez playing in front of him, I think it would be much different to what he's been used to, because he has been playing with Mings, Konsa, he has been playing with Pau Torres, and they are different players to what defenders we have at the club. But I think in terms of the command in the area, I think he will be much more louder than Onana. He would be more organized than Onana. He has a high jump. He can punch the ball in the air. He hasn't got those many errors. The only problem is when you're shooting from the distance, he is not that good. But he can work on it, and if Manchester United do their job in terms of if they are playing on the low block, and if they're able to stop the opposition attacking patterns, then it might be a fact of if Martinez can work on his weaknesses, then I think he's a solid goalkeeper. So let's say if Martinez comes in and he's able to perform better, I think that will be a big boost, because Manchester United, the amount of goals that they conceded were really abysmal. They were really poor. Now, thinking in terms of if he does better than Onana, I think Manchester United fans will be quite happy. So will be Amorim, and Amorim would want a little bit kind of composure at the back, because with Onana it's always uncertain, because he always has got that error in him, and that error always proves to be costly. And I think Amorim would want somebody who is composed enough, who has got an assurance within himself and the ability to make sure that they don't concede those many goals. And I think that'll be a positive sign. So Emiliano Martinez is going to be the goalkeeper, and the backup goalkeeper is another argument. Maybe United won't have that much money to go back into the market and get a younger goalkeeper, so they might ask Heaton to sign for another year and be there as a backup. Now, going forward into the centre back areas, I think that is the area where Manchester United, because they're not playing in European competition, they're going to be playing in League Cup. They can play kids in those positions as well. They can play in the FA Cup as well, but I don't think so that is going to be important. I think the Premier League performance is going to be the most important thing for Rúben Amorim, and for that reason I don't think so they will be spending a lot of money in that department. until and unless some opportunity comes up and they have got money in their transfer kitty, because I always thought that they were really interested in Gerard Brunthwaite, and because of signing the likes of Andy Heaven, I don't think so they'll be going in for a left-footed player. But if Martinez gets injured, then that's a concern, because then you're relying on Luke Shaw and Andy Heaven. Would that be enough for a whole season? So that's a cause for concern. But I think if, let's say, somebody comes in and bids for Martinez, then that will be a concern, because Martinez has been injured a lot, and if somebody comes in with 40 or 50 million euro bid, I think Manchester United will consider that, because they are low on cash and they can always think of apparently selling an asset as Martinez, and they might bring in somebody like Gerard Brunthwaite. So that might be the only thing that we will have to wait till the end of the window. But I don't think so that any centre back position is a cause for concern. They have got the Ligt, they got Mazraoui who can play in that position as well. Maguire is there, and I think that department looks to be quite capable enough. And Rúben Amorim is satisfied with what he has seen. He's happy with the Ligt, he's happy with Maguire. Then there is Yoro. And Lenny Yoro was so good in the Europa League final. For some reason I didn't put him up over here, but he can be a good substitute. He can play in the right centre back position, in the centre back position over here as well. Now there is a concern for a right back position, and I think the case might be here is that, is Dalot good enough? I think next season we might see Dalot staying at Manchester United, but the season after we might see him leaving the club, because as much as he is good in terms of crossing the ball, but he's not that good of a player. And I was expecting Frimpong to join Manchester United and Dalot being put on transfer market, but for some reason I think there is something wrong with the finances, so maybe that's the reason they're not trying to go for those right back positions. They think that Mazraoui and Dalot can do a better job this season, so that is why they're not going in there. But we have seen Estupiñán link, and Estupiñán can play in that left back position. There might be a cause for concern because Luke Shaw is always injured and they can't rely on Dogu, so they're looking for some sort of experience as well. So we might see something happening on the wing backs, but those are the positions which might be addressed later in the window. Now the main thing that we're going to discuss right now is the midfield position. Now for me, if you would ask me, you know, as much as important the forward positions are, for me the cause for concern is still Manchester United midfield. I believe that the whole problem with Manchester United squad is the midfield. The reason I say so is this, because if you would ask me, the players that we have in the squad who can play in the midfield are Ugarte, Kobbie Mainoo, Casemiro, and Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes. When you look at that midfield roster, you tend to think that, you know what, these guys are good, but I don't see something in them which would make the other team think, which would kind of make it the opposition team go, you know what, we are in for a battle today. Now when you look at Ugarte, he's not a number 6. For me, he is a hybrid kind of player who can play in that number 8 and number 6 position. He's not an out and out number 6. When you look at Casemiro, he used to be a 6, but his legs are gone. I don't think so he can play in Premier League. The tempo of Premier League is much higher, and I think he is not good enough for Premier League. He's good enough for the European games, but we're not in European competition anymore. So for me that is a concern. So we have got no number 6. If you ask Kobbie Mainoo to operate over there, I don't think so he can do a job. He's a similar kind of player who is a hybrid between 8 and 10. Then you come to Bruno Fernandes, who is a pro hybrid player, who is a number 10, and he can play in that number 8 position, but he's not a number 6. Now when we talk about number 6, for me number 6 is not someone who can win the ball and try to help out his defenders. I mean, that's what we have known number 6 for. I think the main concern for number 6 is in this Manchester United side, we need a player who can pass the ball from the deep, and they need to pass the ball into those lines between the number 8s and number 10s. That is the problem that we have been facing since last 10 years. I mean, if you go back, we had so many players coming in, joining United and expecting them to be the proper defensive midfielders, such as Schneiderlin, Schweinsteiger, Ander Herrera. I mean, the list goes on. It's a long list, and still we haven't been able to find the right player for United. The last proper number 16 that we had was Michael Carrick, and we know when he retired, that was the last of it. Michael Carrick was a player who tended to pass from the deep, and he used to make things happen for United. He could ping those balls into those spaces between those lines. And if you go a little bit earlier than Michael Carrick, it was Paul Scholes who was playing alongside him. We haven't got a player who can create something. We haven't got a creator. And as much as Bruno Fernandes, he's really talented, but the thing is, Bruno operates in a different sector. He operates in a different area of the pitch, and we need a player who can operate right behind him and has got the ability to ping those balls in. We need someone like Toni Kroos. We need someone who's like Andre Pirlo, who have got the composure and can manage the ball well, because that's the whole problem with Manchester United. They are never good on the possession side. Whenever you see United, they're always passing it to their wing backs and then back to Onana. I think Manchester United fans are tired of watching those kind of patterns, because you end up with nothing. You kind of build up a play and then you go back and reset it, and then once again you're restarting it again. That ends up nowhere. You need to have a creative midfielder. I do remember when Michael Carrick used to play, it was a case of Michael Carrick used to drop in deep. He used to ask the ball from Rio Ferdinand or Vidic, and he used to get the ball. He used to look up and watching for the angles, and then he used to play one-off with Scholes, and as soon as Scholes gets the ball, he used to lay it for Michael Carrick, and then Michael Carrick would just kind of make that long ball pass in towards Nani, Rooney. It was really something. You could see that United had that creativity in the middle of the pitch. But when you look at this United side, there's no creativity. All of them are runners. All of them are chasers. All of them are blockers. But they can't pass the ball for, even if their lives are depending on it. You know, they can't pass the ball from deep. They don't have the ability to do that. So that is a cause for concern for United. I mean, if you look at the players that we're targeting the likes of Gyökeres, we're targeting the likes of Cunha, Mbuemo. Cunha has already joined, but when you look at what we're trying to do, it's a reaction to what we saw last year. I mean, last year was we couldn't score goals, and that was a cause for concern. That was the whole problem, that we could not score goals. But in order to score the goals, you need to understand that it's not something that you need attackers for it. You do need attackers for it, but that's just one part of it. The other part is where the ball is going to come from. I mean, let's say if Lenny Yoro was playing in that Europa League final, I do remember, he used to come a little bit forward because he took on himself and he realized that there's nothing happening in the middle of the pitch. So he took on himself, and what he used to do, he used to come in inside the midfield position and he was pinging those balls in. He was the one who was creating it for United. He was the one who was passing those balls into those lanes. And Amad Diallo, for some reason, he got tired. You know, he couldn't make those run-ins. In the second half, he was completely off. He was huffing and puffing. He was done. And for some reason, I didn't understand why didn't Rúben Amorim change him. And the whole problem is, if you're expecting the creativity coming from the likes of Bruno Fernandes or Amad Diallo, that's not going to happen. You need somebody at the back who's going to make things happen for you. And Lenny Yoro himself can't do it. You need somebody in the midfield to do it for you. If you got Lenny Yoro and that midfield player who's going to create for you, then you got Bruno, then you got those blockchains. Then you got every person in those systems who can create from somewhere. Because then, let's say, if there is high pressing coming in towards you, then what Lenny Yoro can do is, Lenny Yoro can take the ball, because the other players are preoccupied to kind of neutralize that pressing. Lenny Yoro can take that ball and he can ping that ball into the space, into the distance where Mbuemo or Cunha could make those run-ins, and straight away you're on the counter attack. But let's say you've got an opposition who is not pressing towards you, but they're holding their position in order to make a better attack. Let's say it's Manchester City. Now, when you're playing against Manchester City, you would be expecting that you'll be sitting behind and you will let Manchester City play and let them come at you. In that perspective, you need someone in the midfield, because if you have that creative player in the midfield as a number 6, as soon as he wins the ball back, Mbuemo, Cunha or Gyökeres or even Bruno Fernandes, they know that this guy is going to put the ball in the right area and we have to be there in time so that we can capitalize on it. Now, for that whole game plan, you need someone who can do that for you. And so far, I haven't seen any player linked to Manchester United who could do that for Manchester United. I mean, let's take an example. The best example I can give to you, the midfielder which we have been linked heavily, is Ederson. If I want to give my honest opinion on Ederson, I think he is not what Manchester United want. He's not a player that Manchester United need. He is not a player that Manchester United will get better by having him. I think Ederson, if we spend 60 million euros on him or 50 million euros on him, as it has been reported in the newspaper, I think it's going to be a waste of money. He will be signing for Manchester United on pretty high wages as well, around 150 to 200,000 per week. And the thing is, he's not any better than Ugarte or Kobbie Mainoo, and you've already got those players in the squad. So what you need to do is, you need to look better. You need to have a player who is better in terms of making those passes from the deep. And you just don't need one player, you need at least 2 players. And if you're able to get at least 2 of them, then you will be in another dimension, because you would be asking a lot of questions from the opposition team rather than being asked from them. You need to have that creativity in the middle. And I think there are players currently in the transfer market that if you go for them, you can have them. But for some reason, it feels to me that United are not looking into that. What they are expecting is that they want to do better next season by having Gyökeres, Cunha and Mbuemo. And then the season after, they're going to go into the transfer market and see what they can do with the midfield. But I think if they don't address this concern right now, they're going to lose that best time, because we're not in Europe, we're not going to play in Champions League, we're not going to play in Europa League or Conference League. This is the time, because before the World Cup, everybody will be focusing on that World Cup as well. The players I'm sure they'll be focusing on the World Cup. So that means you're going to be playing lesser games, but you will have the quality, because you will be able to reserve your energy, you will be able to practice more, you will be pretty much focused. When the weekend comes, you'll be focused for your weekend game and you will perform to your highest possible ability. Now, when you have got this kind of situation, you need to capitalize on that. And when we say capitalize, you need to have that midfielder who's going to create for you. So you get one midfielder, at least one midfielder who can create for you as a number 6, because then he will be playing with Lenny Yoro, with Ligt, with Bruno Fernandes, and I would say is what United need. Belay by someone who is, I think, more of a blocker, more of a destroyer rather than a passer. He can pass, but he's not that good passer of the ball. You need someone who's so good on the ball that they're creating a lot of chances for you, and then they are basically putting a lot of service for the likes of Gyökeres, Cunha and Mbuemo, because they need service. And if you're able to provide them service, then you're asking the right questions and you're answering them with proper game plan. And I think that United, they need to address this situation. For me, who those midfielders are going to be, I will address them in the upcoming videos. That who should Manchester United target, who should they try to get, and I will be doing that hopefully in the future. Now, thinking about what can United do in terms of covering from the bench, the thing is, when you look at all of the positions, for me the only concern is the left back position, because Dogu is good, but he's not that good. Luke Shaw is always injured. For me, it's a very concerning area where United might be coming short. Lisandro Martínez can play as a left back, but remember, he's always getting those injuries, so they might not risk him for that position. So we might see a player coming in that position, maybe out on a loan, maybe for a smaller fee. That's an area where I'm quite concerned. And then there is another area which I think they need to improve upon, which is Mason Mount. I think Mason Mount, as much as good he is, I don't think so he will ever come up for Manchester United. And if Manchester United are able to send him out on loan, that would be the best thing that they can do. And I think if, let's say, Cunha or Mbuemo gets injured, they have got Bruno Fernandes, they've got Kobbie Mainoo as well, they have got a good coverage. But for me, I think they need to make a decision on Mason Mount, and they need to make that decision quick. And if they're able to do so, then I think they're pretty much backed up from the bench. Now, the other concern for me is the striking department. Let's say Gyökeres comes in and joins United. He has a very good start. He scored a lot of goals in the first 8-10 games, and for some reason he gets a suspension or an injury. Then who's the replacement? And the replacement is going to be none other than Zirkzee. But there has been a report coming in that Manchester United, if any transfer offer comes in for the likes of Højlund and Zirkzee, they're going to entertain it. So they're going to try to see if there is a good return coming on to those players. They will try to sell them. They will try to move them forward. So then the cause for concern is who's going to be the backup for Gyökeres if United do end up signing Gyökeres. And I think that is something where there might be a surprise addition, and I won't be shocked if it will be Mateta. But then Mateta is going to be playing. He's going to be playing for Crystal Palace in the Europe competition, so we might see Crystal Palace refusing that transfer. So that is where the cause for concern is. What will United do if they go late into the transfer market looking for a striker? And also you will have to tell that striker, you know what, we have got Gyökeres, who's our main striker. You might have to sit on the bench. You might have to wait it out. Your chance might come, it might not. Maybe you'll get to play in FA Cup or League Cup, and you're basically standing in for Gyökeres when he's injured or he's suspended. And to ask that of a striker to play in the Premier League and to perform good as well, the odds are pretty hard. You never tend to find a striker of that caliber. But United might have to think on that front. So there might be some sort of agreement that they might sell Højlund and they do not sell Zirkzee. So we might see something of those sort. But all the way, if you look from top to bottom, I think United will have a good squad, and all they have to do is get that Mbuemo bid in, which has been reported that the second bid is going to go in. And as soon as Brentford accepts that and Manchester United can get Mbuemo on board, then they will work on the outgoings, which will be most probably Sancho, Rashford, because the Saudi transfer window is still open. So if they get rid of those players, then the focus is going to come on Garnacho and Antony. And if they're able to get that Real Betis loan agreement with the must buy fee valuation, whatever that may be, then we will look to see that Gyökeres bid will go in from Manchester United. We'll have to wait a week at least, I think. So other than that, I think United have got a pretty good team. The only cause for concern is that left back area, maybe one centre back if Martinez is going to leave the club. And other than that, the main problem is that midfield player, which I'll be soon bringing up in the next episode. Who should Manchester United try to target for that next midfield player? So that's what we have for tonight's show. Hopefully you would have loved today's transmission, and hopefully we'll be coming up with more news as well. And I'm sure that you would have loved this show. I'm sure that you guys will be subscribing to it as well as giving in your likes. Please do share this with your friends who are into Manchester United, and hopefully I will see you soon with more transfer news. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do that as well. It's at the Unitedverse MUFC, and you can give us a follow. It'll be really nice to see that you guys are following us at the Unitedverse MUFC on Twitter. So